happening? It's Paige here, the Chief Pixel Pusher and Paintbrusher over at Gumption, but I also teach classes here at the Art Center online. We're going to have our first official class for our digital painting class. Aren't you excited? I know I am too. So today I'm going to give you the assignment. We're going to talk about thumbnails and what zines are. I'm going to show you some very basic skills on the iPad with Procreate. And we're going to get started on our illustration. This is the very first part of our assignment, and we have 2 or 3 more classes that are going to all build one on top of another. So if you're interested in learning digital painting, this class is for you. Okay, so I have made this handy dandy downloadable form for you. So if you want to grab this at the link down below this video or with the description of this video, do that now. You can print it out, and it just kind of gives you a rundown of the assignment for this class, which is pretty open, but it's a good structure for you to get started. And any notes you might have, you can actually use page 2 for notes. So let's get started. So in this class, I'm going to have you do a very simple illustration for a zine. This can be as complex or simple as you want it to be. And we're going to look at value and all of that in later classes. But for this first class, we're going to be doing a lot of planning. So what is a zine, you might ask? A zine is a self-published piece of work. So it's like your own mini magazine. And a lot of times they have themes like UFOs or like cats or maybe just your artwork is the zine, or maybe you like to do poetry and create artwork. This is a perfect little art piece for you. Now I'm going to show you some things that are brochures and some are zines too. This is actually from my senior show when I did my undergrad that has all of my pieces at the time that were in my portfolio show. And as you can see, it's just like this mini booklet. It's got kind of a hard cover, but then it's got colored pages. This is kind of fancy. You don't even have to do this much. You can actually Xerox paper and do your little illustrations that way, like they used to do in my junior high magazine. That's how we did it then. This is also a book that I took a bookmaking class when I was in school. And this, believe it or not, is a book, but this would also classify as a zine. The big part of this is really going to be the illustration part, but if you want to go the extra mile and create your own zine, this is a great opportunity for you to really get creative. And what I want you to do is to be able to think outside the box and not be afraid of just exploring and having fun. So as you can see, this is a flower that I made for a bookmaking class that has handmade paper here, but also has these areas where you can see this poetry that's in here too. I minored in English, so I did a lot of poetry classes. So this could be classified as a zine. I have done some zines here locally in town. I really love them because it gives me an opportunity to just highlight my artwork, and really it was kind of an opportunity for me to highlight things that were happening in town. So you can see this has my artwork. Again, it's in the booklet format, but you don't have to have it in that format. So here you can see some of these things overhead. This is a zine that I did. You can see here's the art center right there. And I just highlighted interesting things about Pocatello. I was new here. I wanted to get my art out into the world. And so I actually had some of these printed and I gave them to local businesses. So you can do black and white, you can do color, you can do it by hand, you can Xerox. So this was my first zine here. This was the second zine that I did. You can see this one was my mock-up, write-up zine. So I was able to use my art skills and create something that I thought would positively affect the community. Of course, you don't have to even put this out into the community. But I want this to spark some ideas for you, because really we just want you to make your own artwork digitally. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. So here is another zine that I did. This is actually more for a bookmaking class, but you can see, I just want you to know the possibilities are endless as far as zines go. More weird artwork. But because we won't really focus a ton on the zine aspect, we really will be looking at illustration, and that's going to be our main focus for this assignment. But you can create one or many of your own pieces of artwork. I'm going to show you this one again, just so you can kind of see how this one worked out. I used actually letter stamps for this. So you can use all kinds of tools that you want for this particular assignment. So this is actually a well-known artist in the Pacific Northwest. She's a teacher and a business owner. And this is, I've left a link for this in our worksheet here. This is from Kate Bingaman Burt. And this is her artwork, and this is the kind of stuff that she does to create zines. She did a year of documenting her purchases by using artwork. What a cool thing, right? Especially as you're paying off your debt. So I attended a conference a few years ago. I got to see her talk in person, and I was lucky enough to get one of these cool zines of hers. Yes. So that's another option of a zine. These are just a couple zines that I bought a few years ago. I love this kind of paper, but you can kind of see these are zines that have writing in them. So your possibilities are really endless. So I recommend, as you work on this assignment, if you choose to do the zine portion of it, that you do a little investigation and see what kind of zine you might like to do, big or small, one page or multi-page. There are lots and lots of options. Okay, so also in this class, we're going to be talking about thumbnails. And so if you have never heard of a thumbnail before, boy, are you in luck, because they're a very important part of any kind of art process that you do. So this means whether you're doing digital art or analog art, thumbnails are really a good thing to practice and to do. We're going to do some for this assignment. So thumbnails are a really important part of exploring an idea or just a picture that you have in mind. It's nice to do several thumbnails because a lot of times magic kind of comes from doing this repetition, doing these thumbnails. So what's a thumbnail? Well, it's an abbreviated quick sketch that just lets you put in an idea without having to correct it. And you can do many of them at the same time, and they can really look like a mess. They don't have to look like anything special necessarily. You're not invested, you're just exploring ideas. Now, admittedly, when I was in school in my youth, I hated sketching, I hated thumbnails, but truthfully, the magic happens here. And so I'm going to show you some footage of me doing thumbnails, and I'm also going to show you, we're going to do it live, and I'm going to show you how to get started in Procreate with your thumbnails. So stick around, but first I want to show you a book full of thumbnails. It's called The 1000th Thumbnail. Say that fast a lot. Yeah, you won't get very far, because this is an incredible look at what this gentleman did to explore and research his ideas. Now, his name is Joko Budiono. I probably butchered that. This is an actual book. I got this when I was in graduate school and started using this. Was like one of the first books I had to buy for school. And I've just hung on to it this long because it really is valuable, and sometimes you kind of need to see what other people are doing in order to have an idea of how you want to do it yourself. So let's take a look at it really quickly, and then we will get started on our assignment. Okay, so this is the book. And as you can see, these are actually thumbnails in this very first page. They're a quick sketch, quick exploration of light and dark. And you really don't necessarily have to get too invested right off the bat. So here, this book kind of goes through, let's look at it here. It goes through shape, silhouette, light and dark, positive and negative thumbnails, line thumbnails, and perspective. and so much more, as you can see. These are great to explore ideas. And if you're a professional artist or you strive to be, these are things that will live in your future. But you can see these are just shape thumbnails, and he's just filled an entire page just using a pen and exploring shape. And you can see he circled this one. He likes that one. It's just fascinating, honestly, to have the opportunity to look at somebody else's work, because sometimes you just don't know what's possible until you see somebody else do it, or you understand a program better, or what have you. So we're just going to flip through this a little bit. Gives you kind of an idea of what thumbnails can look like. You've got these really quick ones. He's using these for light and shadow, but then you have some that are a little more in-depth, a little bit larger. Here. Here we're looking at some that are in perspective. So as you think about your illustrations that you're going to do for this class, you can be as in-depth as you want. You can do a really cute illustration. You can do a scene if you want to. Whatever inspires you, because this is your illustration, your zine. You can see these are some bigger items here where he's exploring a little bit more in depth. Some of these items, more small thumbnails. Here he's exploring some of the color for these items. So these are a tighter thumbnail, but now we're looking at some color, and he can adjust color as opposed to when he goes into his main painting. So I hope this inspires you. I hope that you find, you're able to find something here that where you want to go, and you have a good idea of what a thumbnail is. All right, so this is the book in case you want to get one of your own. So I'm working on a Christmas project, and I'm going to create a brochure, but I just need a couple of illustrations to tell my story for a product that I'm selling at market. There's no better way to teach this class than to actually have to do it for myself as well. So you'll see me drawing a little character, and that is what I'm doing. You can do anything that you want, of course, in this class. Create some landscapes if you want to, whatever you want. Let's get started. Okay, so we're here in Procreate. I'm going to get out of here and go all the way back to the front here. Whoops. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to actually just click into our Procreate app. And this is what mine looks like as you enter. And we need to make a new file to start our thumbnails with. So I'm just going to hit this plus icon up in the top right. And you can see I have all these options. We're going to create an 8.5 by 11. Now I already have one of these in my system here, but I want to show you how to create a new document. So click on the plus sign, and if you click up here in the top right where you see this little black bar across from new canvas, we're going to click on that, and here we get to figure out our dimensions. Now I always kind of work in inches, so I'm going to do an 8.5 inches by 11. I always do my DPI at 300 DPI because that's the best, the best quality or the best standard quality that we use as illustrators. Otherwise, you're going to have a pixelated image, so we don't want that. So you see here, down at the DPI, we're going to have 300. Okay, and here you can kind of select your color profile, time-lapse settings. I just wouldn't even mess with these things. I would just keep moving forward for what we're doing here. I never change these things really either. So here is your new piece of artwork here. And we're going to start by making little boxes, actually. And I really want to just make this as basic as we can for you so you can kind of learn these skills and build upon them. So I have a layer here. Up here in the top right, you can select your color. So I like to sketch in kind of this copy blue color. I'm sorry, you're going to hear Harlow the cat meowing at me this morning. So I've selected my color here, and that next we select our pencil that we want to sketch in. And I have a ton of different pencils and things that I can use for this. You could just use a regular old pencil. If you go down to drawing, there's lots of options here as far as sketching and that kind of goes. So I would recommend going into the sketching, selecting one of those. I have a favorite brush that I like to use that is kind of a square brush that I'm going to use today, but you don't need it to make magic happen here. This is just a personal preference. All right. So if we just talk about what's going on up here, we have this brush icon where you can select your brushes. We have the smudge tool, which actually you can select any number of brushes here too that you want to use for the smudge tool. We'll get into that later, but not today. And then you have your erase here, which you can use brushes too. I personally like to use an airbrush for my eraser, and you can use your big fluffy airbrush or a hard-edged one. So I kind of go between those two. And then if you click on this layer palette here, these are your layers, and we're going to really work with layers today. And that's really what you're going to walk away with today, because layers can be mysterious if you have never used any kind of drawing program, right? So now you know the tools up here. Over on the side here, this makes your brush big or small. And this changes the opacity. So if you don't want full opacity, you can change that there. Of course, we have, if you want to get out of your document, you just click on Gallery, and that will take you back to your main gallery here. I'm going to actually rename this file. And we're going to call it Thumbnails. Okay, so if you want to get back into your document, you just have to click on that and you're back in. You can also use your fingers and move. If you use two fingers, you can move your palette here or your canvas. You can move your canvas around. So if you need to get at something and you like to draw at an angle, that's how you do that. And quickly, these are some different tools that we have at our disposal to help us create art and make it better. Today, we may or may not use these. I want to just keep it really simple for you so you're not overwhelmed. So I'm going to make sure that I'm over here and I've got my brush selected. Make sure it's the one that I want, which it's not. So I'm just going to go back to the one that I want here. So first, what we've got to do with thumbnails is make little boxes to put our thumbnails in. And this is a good exercise for you. So I kind of always have to tilt this at an angle here. So when you just draw a box, you keep the pen on your paper and then you hold it. It will kind of square up a little box for you here. So I have one box there. And your boxes don't have to be rectangles. They can be squares as well. I'm going to show you how you can move this box around. So if you go up to the top here where the arrow is, this brings up a whole new menu that enables you to move this box around. So you can see we can move it anywhere we want. And so that's a good tool to know. And if you go over here on your layers palette, you can see this box on your layers palette. So if you have many boxes on one layer, it's going to move them all at the same time when you use this arrow key. So what I like to do is to create a new layer for each box so I can get them situated however I want to. So I'm going to hit this plus sign, and here I have a brand new layer. I'm going to draw another box, this time a square box. And if you put your other finger, if you're holding your pencil and you put your other finger on the surface here of your iPad, it'll make it square. So then what you can do from here, let's see, let's make a horizontal box. So hold the pencil there, it'll straighten it out, and then you can put your, well, it's not quite working with the finger here. That's probably as good as that's going to get here. But see, I have two shapes on one layer over here. But when I try to move them around, you can see that they're there. If you want to undo something on the iPad, you just tap it with two fingers. So like your pointer finger and your middle finger, if you just tap, it will just go back through the steps that you just created. And if you want to redo something, you hit it with your thumb, your pointer finger, and your middle finger, and then that's your redo. So I'm going to put this box on a different layer so we can practice this again. So we're going to hit that plus sign. We have a new layer, and then there we go. We've got another box. If you would like to change, if you're really particular and you want to change your box, all you have to do is at the top here it says edit shape. You can click on edit shape and you can move these lines around to straighten them up if you would like. There are many ways to kind of do this, or a couple ways, but this is a great way to do it when you see that menu pop up right after you create a shape. So now we have 3 boxes. So if you don't want to keep drawing boxes, you can, I'm going to take my pencil and slide it over this layer to the left, and it brings up a menu, you see. So you can duplicate this. See, and it brings up a brand new layer, and you can take your arrow key, and then you can move this anywhere that you want to. Okay. And you can do that for all of them. See, so we'll duplicate it, move it around. We'll duplicate. I'm going to actually show you how to square up this one in a different way. So I'm making sure that I'm on the correct layer for this first box that we did. I'm going to use this arrow key and kind of move it to where we can kind of see it. Now, if I want to fix this and straighten it up after the fact, I can also go to my distort menu here. You see you have freeform, uniform, and distort. I kind of live in uniform most of the time, but if you have to adjust things, you can go to distort or warp, and I can grab this node in the corner, see, and I can straighten that up a little bit. And then when I hit the arrow key again, that goes away, and then it's straightened up. So I can move this anywhere I want. And then if I want to duplicate it to create more, then I can do that. Wonderful, right? So this is kind of handy. And this is how I'd recommend to kind of work with these to get them started. And then you can merge these layers together by, you can either click on, just tap on this layer and you get a whole new menu here, which would allow you to combine down or merge down. You see there at the bottom. Or you can pinch with your fingers, whoops, pinch these layers and pinch them together, and then they are all on one layer, you see. So that will be handy as you kind of decide what you want your template to look like. I'm going to undo that for now. And I'm just tapping with 2 fingers. And they should all reappear here. So one thing that I recommend doing, or that I do when I am doing thumbnails, is I actually make a list of things that I kind of want to keep in mind, and maybe ideas that I have that maybe I just am not ready to put onto a sketch yet, or that I want to keep in mind while I'm sketching. So I have my pencil here. One thing I want to work on is a close-up of my little owl that I'm working on. So I want to make sure I get a close-up of that. And then kind of think about your story that you're trying to tell with your thumbnail. I'm going to show you, I'm going to quickly jump out of here and show you the thumbnails that I've been working on. Okay, so you can see here, this is actually some thumbnails that I have been working on for a story that I'm telling, and this is what I'm working on for our assignment here, is to demonstrate what it looks like to create thumbnails. Now these are tighter thumbnails. Yours do not have to be this tight. They can just be strictly dark and light, or just shapes. So just know this is how I work when I'm creating thumbnails, because I kind of want to be able to envision it. And this is what your page probably will begin looking like after you get started. So I'm going to take us back. So I'm writing down ideas. So I want to do a close-up, maybe an image with Hermie and a human. Maybe a character turnaround of sorts. Character, we'll just put turnaround or turn. So I know what I'm going to use on my packaging, because I'm going to use this for packaging too. And I think I want a thumbnail of him standing on pine needles or something. So this is kind of how I work. You don't have to work this way, but I kind of like to just think. It gets me thinking, and that's what thumbnails really are for, is they get you thinking about ideas, and they really help develop a story for you. So you could fill a whole page of these, which I think is a good rule of thumb. And you can also fill them in, so they're solid as well, but I guess we'll leave them as they are. And then I'm going to duplicate one of these to keep it. And then I'm going to merge these together. So again, I'm going to do the pinch and squeeze there, and they're all on one layer. And then I have this one, reserved in the background if I want to do more of those. And I'm just going to kind of bring these over here in the center a little bit. I'm going to change the opacity of this layer. We haven't actually discussed this yet. And this is a great tool as well as you're working in Procreate. If you click on the end there, you can change your opacity. You see this bar where you can change your opacity. Sometimes it's nice to change your opacity of your boxes to just have them a little bit lighter so you can focus on what you are doing. But there's also a whole list of things that you can do here, which you're not going to need to do yet in this class, but just know that this menu is here in the future. So where normal, I'm going to change my opacity to about 50%. And then I just click back on my layer, and I'm going to lock this layer so I don't accidentally move it, and create a new layer here. Are you with me still? So now on this new layer, it's at a regular opacity, and I still have my brush here with everything selected that I wanted. And now I can get started to work. So one image that I wanted to do was the owl standing on Hermie standing on some pine needles. It's hard for me to explain, but you'll get to see kind of what I'm thinking. So, as far as sketching goes, you can just draw like you normally do with any other tool. And they can be very quick. You can see this isn't very fancy, but it gives you an idea of what is going on here. And I can make him smaller by using the arrow key up here, and then making sure that he's in uniform down below, and then taking one corner node and just shrinking him down. And then you can move him anywhere you want to there. So I moved him down. I make my pencil a little smaller. Like maybe create a bow here. I'm thinking this is going to go on my packaging. Now I already have an image of him with a wreath, but it doesn't matter. You're really just planting seeds of ideas here. That is what thumbnails are for. So you can see they can be very loose. I mean, this could even be on the mantle. So I made a straight line there. I can edit my shape and move it up and down, or I could make it an ellipse or a polyline. I'm just going to move that up here. So see, I'm already having ideas that are coming to me, and it wasn't part of my original plan. It's okay to roll with it. I mean, we are cultivating ideas here. You could even now we're on the mantle. Now we have blown past just being on this regular bow here, and we're moving into a different idea. But again, you can just sketch like you normally do on a piece of paper. What's different is you can export this to a picture, or you can expand on it if you want to. But thumbnails are a great tool. Okay, so maybe I'm going to start another one. I'm going to do a new layer for this. You don't actually have to do it. I kind of like to do that so I can move them around. Again, I'm going to hit that bow idea and maybe, well, he is going to be centered on this thing, but you can kind of see these bow lines kind of all point back to him. Again, your thumbnail is just quick. You don't have to correct anything. You don't even have to be super detailed about anything, like I've said. You just kind of explore an idea. And I feel like this is how you get your most original kind of work. And you can see this doesn't look much like the owl that we've seen before, but we get the idea, and you can go in and really focus on shadow and light if you want, as far as this goes. Making my pencil bigger over here. All right. Okay, so then we were going to do, let's do a hand. All right. I'm going to create a new layer. So Hermie has managed to get himself into a Christmas tree and into somebody's home. And he becomes part of the family. This is a story really based on reality, because my brother had a Hermie in our youth that he and my mom or whoever would hide in the Christmas tree every year, and then they'd move it around, and they really had fun with it. And I thought, that would be a really fun tradition to bring back or to create a story about. So you can see I'm kind of drawing a hand here, just starting with the overall kind of shape. My thumb is a little bit big. So here we go. I'm going to explain another tool to you. This is this selection tool. It looks kind of like a ribbon. And what you can do is you can draw around an item, and then you hit the arrow key, the selection key, and you can make that item smaller. The selection tool is a great tool to use, and there are lots of features here. I often just use the freehand tool because it allows me to do that selection. And when you're done with it, you just click back up at the top there and it goes away. Well, it's supposed to go away. And you can keep drawing. So because I have put this on its own layer over here, you can see I can move this around and make it smaller and place it kind of where I want it to be. And you can leave it like this, or you can get kind of more detailed with your drawing. You can use your eraser and clean up your edges if you want. No pressure to do so, but and I think just for this one I'm going to actually do another layer so I can put Hermie in here. Using my quick selection tool to create a circle. Now at this point this might be a little distracting, so I might go down to the hand layer, go to the N, and just change the opacity here just a little bit. We can always change it back. This way I can focus on Hermie himself. And I got to see, I think I want to do an overhead shot here. So I'm gonna kind of make sure I'm on the right layer. We're kind of foreshorten this a little bit. So I'm hoping this kind of looks like we're looking at him from above. Again, if you draw a circle and you hold it, it cleans up that line. You can adjust it up here at the top where it says edit shape. Of course, for your thumbnails, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just know that that's a tool at your disposal. And maybe he should be kind of looking up here. Like he's looking at her. So that kind of conveys my idea a little bit. I'm going to go back. Actually, I'm going to show you how to make a solid color, I think. So I'm going to make another layer. I'm going to click on this layer and drag it below my hand. And I'm going to create a square, another square. You can draw it line by line. You just have to make sure that these lines are solidly connected. And then if you click on your color up here at the top right, click and hold and drag, you can drag that color in and you drop it in there and then you have a solid color. So I'm going to change the opacity on this, and then I'm going to turn on these layers again by clicking the check. I can take my erase tool, my eraser, and kind of erase out this area, because really as you're doing your thumbnails you want to be thinking about light and dark too, for whatever story you're going to tell in your zine. All right, so I like that, and then what I need to do is I'm going to turn this layer back to full opacity, and then I'm going to see if I want to move him more in the palm. And I can erase out some of these areas of the hand that show through here. Which means that I need to kind of erase out this area in the back. All right. So here we have a pretty nice thumbnail that tells a story, and I'm going to combine these layers to create one image. So you can see now that's one image. And look at that. I have 3 ideas in the span of, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, where if I hadn't done thumbnails, I wouldn't have come up with these ideas. So this is really why thumbnailing is so important, and how it can really help you as an artist create the best compositions. The point here too to keep in mind is to really push yourself. If you have some weird angles that you're looking at something, maybe you've got the bird's eye view or the worm's eye view, think about ways to push your storytelling too. That's what's really fun, because it doesn't cost you anything to do it in the thumbnail. Nobody has to see your thumbnail, and you can just really freely explore your ideas in this stage. You don't have to get tied up into the technical aspects of illustration there. You're just having fun, telling a story, and getting it out on paper. Okay, as you're making your thumbnails, if you would like to hashtag them on Instagram and share them with the world, use this hashtag here, PackThumb21, so you can share them with all of us who are working on this assignment too. We'd love to see it. Another thing that I failed to mention that might be good to keep in mind for your thumbnails is lots of times it's good to keep in mind a background, a middle ground, and a foreground. So you can see here we have some toys that are in the foreground. Maybe we'd have something in the background like chair legs or something. And then we have these guys in the middle ground. That always makes for an interesting composition. And it could definitely be better than this thumbnail even too. But just to kind of have you thinking, it's always good to kind of include things in the foreground. Usually they aren't as detailed. You know, we're creating a focal point here by including these things this way. So just keep that in mind as you're working along. Actually, we could put the tree in the background. One thing that I'm always striving to do for myself is to get better at storytelling. So you can see, you could even put somebody's shoe here. That's a pretty poor shoe, but you get the idea that somebody is sitting in this chair. And so this interaction with this kitten and the owl is supervised, so you kind of get that part of the story there too. And of course, if you've got the tree in the background, kind of just helps push your narrative. Whoops. Of course, you know, one thing I did not mention here are these little arrows here in our panel for our paintbrush. One is an undo, one is a redo. So if you don't do the tapping, you can do the undo or redo here. I hope you enjoyed this class and you got something useful out of it. I'm very excited that you're here with me and you're doing this project. I can't wait to see what you do, and I hope you will share your work with us and inspire all of us as we move along through this project. Thanks for tuning in, and if you haven't liked or subscribed to the Art Center's YouTube channel, do that now. We'll have more great free online classes for you here too.